welcome to my channel. I'm Rebecca. I'm a spiritual medium and animal communicator. I've taken a little bit of time off recently. I was celebrating my birthday and just taking some time to rest and relax and do some things for myself, which is really important and I think ties in especially well with this first video. I've spent a lot of time also out in nature and connecting in with spirit and seeing what things they want to bring up to share with the collective moving forward over these next few months. So I'm really excited. I've got some new videos coming, and I appreciate you all waiting for the next drop while I've had some time to myself. So let's get into today's video. So what we're going to be talking about today is balance, and it was something that I've just been hearing like all the time, not only in my own life, but also in my client sessions as well, mainly my human client sessions. Animals are very good at creating balance in their own lives. They know when to rest, they know when to be active. But humans definitely don't. We have a way of just taking on far too much and going and going and going until suddenly we can't go anymore, whether that be through exhaustion or, you know, running out of time to cram so many things in, or just really needing to stop. So when we talk about balance, something that I realized is it's really easy to say to people, oh, you need to get a better, work-life balance. That's all well and good if you know what balance is. Quite a lot of people, and myself included at times, don't really know what balance is. Because when you look at your life, and obviously we all have different things. Some people work from home, some people work out in the field, some people travel a lot for work, some people work shifts. We're all very different. So balance for us is going to look very different to, somebody else. But what we need to do is look at all of the things that kind of create this like a little hub of our lives. I was showing it almost like a grid system where we're in the middle, or even like a mind map. A mind map might be easier. So you'd have you in the middle, and then you have all of these little offshoots. So you have, what do you do at home? Are you the main caretaker for your children? Do you do the cooking, the cleaning? Could you have more balance there? Do you have somebody to help you, or are you on your own doing this? Perhaps you don't have children, but you have a really active social life. Do you need to kind of rein that in a little bit? Do you go out a lot until, you keep saying yes to everything? I had a conversation with a friend over the weekend who was like, the problem is I just say yes to everything. And then you get burnt out because you might want to do it all. But as, in a human physical body, there is only so much we can do. We need to rest and regenerate. And also for our minds, we need time to be still and quiet so that we can go through our internal healing processes and just to kind of get away from the noise and come back to ourselves. So it's really the starting point about balance is to find out what that would look like for you. So, look at yourself and the aspects of your life and think about the places where you perhaps feel overstretched. Maybe perhaps you have perhaps, say, for example, you take the children to school every morning. So you have that in the morning, getting the packed lunches ready if they have packed lunch, getting the children washed and dressed and into the car or walking to school, rushing to drop them off. And then you only have about 15 minutes between that and going to volunteer somewhere, or you run a coffee morning for residents, or you always book your first Zoom call of the day at this time. And actually you're thinking, I'm so stressed every day. I only have 15 minutes to rush back and then I have to be doing something else. That's an area where you can create balance. So perhaps you still have the routine. Obviously you have certain times that the children have to be picked up and taken to school, but perhaps you could move your day around slightly so that you do that first, but then you have an hour or half an hour so that when you get back home, you have that time to just sit for a moment and kind of gather yourself and have your coffee or your tea, and then you go on to the next thing, so you're not constantly feeling so rushed. I think also there is an issue with some of us where we can, whether we realize it or not, we can be trying to escape ourselves. So particularly if we've been through difficult situations, painful things that may have come up, and perhaps every now and again the thought will creep in. I understand from the work that I do that when those things come up, it's part of you saying to yourself on a, you know, a higher consciousness level, something isn't okay here. It needs to be addressed. I need to move through this to heal it. Sometimes what people will do is when those things come in, to stop those thoughts from coming in, it's like sticking your fingers in your ears. If you're so busy and you're always doing things, you don't have time for that voice to come in, because it's like, not now, busy, going to work, not now, going out. You know, you don't have time. So you're effectively silencing yourself on a deeper level and trying to run away from yourself. And that's a really big problem. And I think that that's a problem that many people are dealing with now. And it's something that I dealt with in my younger years. There were things that I did not want to deal with. As I got older, I was like, well, that's in the past and it can stay there. And I wanted to shut it away and just keep moving on. But you can't move on, because the things from the past shape us into the future. And if there are things that have been toxic or painful or harmful, we have to deal with them, to face them, and to know how to heal them in order to move on and not create those same patterns again. Because what happens is it's a cumulative effect. It's like having a box and you're like, I don't want to look at this. I put this painful memory in here and shut the lid. And then 6 months later, something else happens. I'll quick shove that in the box as well. And you keep shoving the lid down and shutting these things in the box until one day it's like a jack in a box and the lid bursts open because it's so full. The lid bursts open. And what happens is then all of the things you didn't deal with come up. And that can be in the form of becoming chronically unwell, especially with trauma. If trauma isn't dealt with, it will manifest in the body. If we don't listen to the subtle signs, our body is very good at suddenly saying, like, you need to listen to me now. And that can come as chronic illness that will be debilitating and force you to rest. It can also come up as mental illness, where you can have a nervous breakdown because your system is just so overwhelmed. And it's like, you know, I always see it like, you know, obviously it's a serious conversation, but to add a little bit of lightness to it, because we don't want it to add to the stress, I always envision it like, you know, the movie, the Men in Black movie, where the chap's face opens up and there's like a tiny little alien inside that's controlling the human body. I often think of it like that, like our higher self inside is like screaming, like, listen to me, deal with this, help me to heal, let's move on. And if we don't listen to the little alien in there, the higher self, if we're not listening to that, it's almost like suddenly the computer system of our emotions and our psyche just cracks because it's under so much pressure and it's taken so much, and it physically has no more capacity to keep going. And again, it's a reset mechanism where it will just force us to stop. And when we get to that point, it can be really, really harmful and frightening. And I know this from personal experience as somebody who kept pushing things away, and then it all came back in the worst way possible. And it can be terrifying to feel that you don't know anymore how to be. You lose all sense of your self-identity. You know, it can lead to people choosing not to continue with life because of how painful it is and how lost they feel. And it's also very hard. It's still very hard, no matter how much awareness is raised, it's still very hard for people to understand. When you get to that point, it's very hard for you to explain, because it's not, at that point, it's not one thing, it's literally everything. You can't vocalize how you feel. And something that I found is that people will say, oh, but everyone has a bad day, chin up, you'll get over it, tomorrow will be better. And I genuinely don't believe that most people say those things to be dismissive or unkind. I think they say those things because it's perhaps a bit scary for them. They don't know. They've got somebody broken in front of them, and they don't know how to help you. They can't fix you because all of the things you're feeling are all in here, and they can't pinpoint for you. It's different. Like, think of it like if you have a car. If you have a car and the engine light comes on the dash, you're going to go check that problem out. If you don't know what it is and it's not something obvious, and you can, like, say it's like low fuel, that's something you can fix. You can go, okay, I recognize, I've got low fuel, I'll go fill up. I've sorted that problem and I'll move on. If the engine light comes on and you've looked in the manual and you're still not sure, and it's a bigger problem, you would take it to the garage because you don't want your car to suddenly go wrong, to stop when you're driving, or, something that's going to cause you a bigger problem that's going to cost you a lot to fix. So why do we do it with ourselves? Why do we ignore the check engine light, which is us feeling uncomfortable, us feeling stressed? We just power on through. And I think a lot of that is to do with society. It's always seen that, you'll see a lot of things like where things are advertised, like counseling or addiction services. It's always wrapped up as if it's a problem. There's something wrong with you to need this. And I think a lot of the time that's why people don't want to address things, because they don't want to be seen as there's something wrong with me. We have this real need to be accepted in society as fitting in and being like everyone else, even though that's silly because we are all so unique. So we plow through these things, we ignore our problems, we ignore the check engine light just so that we can continue trying to fit in. But what happens is it starts to become obvious. Even if we think we're fitting in, it starts to become obvious to other people. If you're in work, you start coming in, you're late because you keep sleeping in because you're so exhausted mentally, physically, emotionally. So then that's a problem for you at work. Or you start losing weight because you're so stressed about finances that you can't eat. We think we're plowing through and we're getting on. And I say this again, I say this as someone who thought, I'm doing great, I'm putting on this smile and I'm carrying on and I'm showing up and nobody knows. But people knew. People have said to me, I knew something was wrong, but I didn't realize how bad it was. And there's still such a stigma about talking about, when life is hard, and life is hard for everyone. And something else that we do is we compare. And I think comparison and balance actually do go together. We compare ourselves to others. So we might be stressed, like I was saying earlier about you have the school run and then you go run a coffee morning, or you have to get on a Zoom call. We might feel stressed about that and think, oh, it just really stresses me out every day. But then you see an advert for, a charity for war-torn countries where people are starving. And then you shut down the way you feel about your situation because, well, I don't live there. My life's not as bad as that. You feel guilty because your life's not as bad as that. But we have to stop doing that. We're all experiencing things very differently. We all experience hardship. We all experience joy. And we cannot begin to understand each other if we do not understand ourselves. And I think that's a huge problem where we've become, and I've said this before many times, We are more connected than we've ever been. We have the internet, and that is part of the problem. As great as it is for staying in touch with people and, seeing wonderful things like wildlife and hearing from people that live far away in other lands, we're also connected 24/7 to every single thing that's going on in everybody else's life as well as our own. So, we're bombarded with it daily, daily, daily. And so you can feel like you're comparing yourself. You can feel like you're taking on the weight of the world. And we weren't designed to do that. We absolutely were not. And if you look at, you look at figures over the last few years, the mental health of people has declined. People are more stressed than they've ever been. And yet you think we live in an age of technology where so much has been made easier for us, but has it? Because we've just disconnected ourselves. We have all these things that can do things for us. So we stop being human because we have so many things to fill our time. We can go online, we can scroll for hours. You can sit and, like this YouTube video, you can sit for hours watching video after video about a whole host of different subjects. But what do you get from that? Unless you're actively using it as a tool to learn and grow and to help to heal yourself, all you're doing is filling a gap. You're just filling a gap that stops you from dealing with your own stuff. So I just think comparison is a really unhealthy thing to be doing. You can aspire to things. That's very different. You can look at somebody and think, oh wow, if your desire is to be head of a company by a certain age, you might see somebody online who's done that and think, oh wow, that's amazing. I'm really interested in what they've done, because you can learn from them. You can learn some things, and it's interesting. But you're not looking at them and thinking, oh, well, I really wanted to do that. Well, there's no hope for me because look at them. They're so much better than me. You're not doing that. That's the toxic side of it. And this is where we're really out of balance. We are constantly looking outside of ourselves, thinking that other things are better, or comparing ourselves and shutting ourselves down by thinking, well, that's worse. I shouldn't be feeling bad about my own stuff. Everything is valid. You might stub your toe and it hurts so much, and you got an ingrowing toenail from it, and you couldn't walk properly for a couple of weeks, and that was awful because you couldn't go running, which you love. That to you in that moment is your, that's your disaster and your difficult thing. Somebody else might have had a terrible accident and lost a limb, and that's their terrible thing. It doesn't mean yours is less, theirs is worse. They're things. They're just things that have occurred in our lives and in other people's lives, that are things that they are finding difficult, or things that they are celebrating, finding easy, if they have achievements. But we have to stop with the comparison, because the comparison, I think, is the slippery slope to being out of balance. We're so bombarded with ideals as well, and I used to love magazines. My favorite thing was to get a magazine, like a celebrity magazine, when I was in my 20s. I used to love to get a magazine, go to a coffee shop, and I'd sit and I'd read and I'd look at all the fashion. I loved it for the fashion and the makeup. And you'd see, like, oh, this is what this celebrity wore on the red carpet, or who wore it better. And it wasn't until I started getting more deeply into my own healing journey and into my spiritual work that I started to realize how toxic it was. Not only is a lot of it false, you'll get these sensational headlines about things that are going on with celebrities, and they might not even be true, but also they're constant reminders to you of where you're not enough, where you're missing out. Look at this celebrity, her skin was flawless on the red carpet, and you're thinking, I was thinking, I've got this really big frown line. I've got this really big frown line because, that's my face, and I'm often in deep thought, and that's just part of me, Or things that are unattainable to some people, and then you have guilt and you feel bad over that. You know, they might be showing you like, this celebrity is only 23 and they've got a mansion in Malibu, and they've got this designer handbag which cost, you know, $20,000, and you're thinking, oh, I'm never going to achieve that. But that's not normal. That's celebrity lifestyle. It's incredibly different to most people. And, you know, that's not to say you could never achieve it, but it's that feeling. It's the feeling that it gives you. And I think this is the thing we have to be aware of. We've got to be more aware of our own feelings and where we're placing our attention. How is it making us feel? You know, can we look at that and think, oh, that's a really nice handbag? You know, I think that's crazy money to pay for a handbag, but good on them if they like it. And that's where I've got to now. There are things I can see and I can appreciate. And, you know, if you have that lifestyle and you're happy, that's great. But there are things as well now that I will not let affect me, like the whole, look at this person, they have no lines or wrinkles, and look how skinny they are and how fabulous they are. I've done it all. I'm working on myself rather than letting that outside influence come in and dictate how I should be feeling, and me putting all the things in the box and shutting the lid. Like I said, I know what it feels like when that box bursts open. And once you're in that place, it's incredibly hard to get back out of it. So it's all about balancing and listening to ourselves. And something interesting as well that came up for me with a client session a couple of weeks ago was balance in spirituality and materialism. And this is another toxic thing I've noticed that's come up in the spiritual community. I use a spiritual community in the loosest of terms because it's, you know, it's not. We're here to learn, to grow, to heal, and to enjoy what we have. And we are in an age of technology, and we can enjoy that technology, again, being mindful of what it's being used for and how it makes us feel when we interact with it. But there seems to be this thing in the spiritual community of, if you're spiritual, you shouldn't want to do your makeup, you shouldn't want to get hair extensions, you shouldn't want to have plastic surgery. I would say that you can still do those things, but why are you doing it? Are you doing it from a place of unhealed trauma? Are you doing it to look a certain way, to fit a certain mold? Are you doing it because you feel pressure? Or are you genuinely doing it because you want to, because it brings you joy? That's what you have to look at. You can't say to people, you know, you can't be spiritual if you're doing this. And I had a hard time with it. At the start, I remember thinking, well, they're not very spiritual. How can they do and say that, and then they're going and doing this? And there's people just love to put people in boxes, and it's very toxic to cut yourself off from everything. And the thing I'm learning is, as long as you're not harming anyone else or any other living being, you're not causing harm. You're also not harming yourself, because that's very important to remember. Where is it coming from? If what you are doing is coming from a genuine place of love and care, then enjoy what the world has to offer. You can, I always say, my dream is to live in the middle of nowhere in nature. That's my dream. I love growing things. I grow my own vegetables. I love plants and flowers. I love being in nature, but I also love the fact I have a mobile phone and I can contact my friends when I want to. I love the fact I can sit here using technology to record this to share with you. And it's having that balance. Now, if I was sat here recording constantly videos every single day, just to put them out there for likes and shares and that kind of thing, that's toxic. That is not balance. And like I said, I've had a big break, and big breaks for the algorithm are always rubbish, because you do lose people. People aren't interested, but people aren't interested to stick around because they're trying to fill a gap in their own life. So we don't have to worry about that. Take that break. If you are a creator, you're sharing wisdom, and you're trying, you're on your own healing journey, and you're trying to like I am, to share the things I've learned to make things a little easier along the way for others. Don't care about the algorithm. People will find you. The right people will find you. I truly believe that. But we have to stop this feeling of A, that we're missing out on things if we're not constantly showing up, and B, that we become irrelevant, because your whole life is relevant. Just you being here is important. You're here to experience everything about life. You're here to help yourself, to heal, to grow, to learn, to enjoy everything that life has to offer. As long as it's coming from a good place, a place of not causing harm to yourself or others, then do what makes you happy. You don't have to fit in. And it goes back to, people saying about, not agreeing to everything. And I always laugh and say, look, I'm a recovering people pleaser. I never used to want to offend people. If people said to me, oh, do you want to come out after work for a drink? And I'd be thinking, all I really want to do is go home, get my comfy clothes on and relax. But I didn't want to be seen as the person who did that when everyone else wanted to go out. So I'd be like, oh yeah, okay, I'll come. Then I'd make myself feel really stressed and anxious about going. And I'd either cancel at the last minute with no real valid excuse, which I didn't need anyway, or I'd go and I'd have an awful time because I'd feel really stressed and unhappy, because I knew deep down I didn't want to go anyway. It wasn't what lit me up. It wasn't in that moment what I wanted to feel balanced and happy. We have to stop doing that. And you can be polite. You can just say to people, oh, no, thank you. Like, that sounds great. Thanks for asking me, but no, thank you. But we have to stop. We've got to start connecting back into ourselves and actually balancing our life, because, you'll hear about people that will have near-death experiences, or they might have, life-changing accidents or life-changing illnesses. And they suddenly do kind of step back and look at their whole life and say, I wish I had done this, or I spent too much time worrying about that. You never ever hear anyone in their final months, days, minutes, ever saying, do you know what, it was really awful. I made myself so happy by doing all the things I wanted. No one ever regrets that. But they do regret all the time that they missed by worrying, by doing things that didn't light them up. And we can enjoy having material things. We're in an age of material things, but don't let material things control you. Don't let the reason that you take that job be because the 6-figure salary that means you can buy the mansion or you can buy the sports car because it impresses people. Do you really want the sports car? Okay, you do. But why do you want it? Have you always wanted that car? Is it a car that absolutely brings you joy? Or is it because it tells other people that you have money and that you're someone? Because they're not the reasons to do the things we do. They're not the reasons to want to earn more or to be busier or to have material things. They are filling gaps, as I said earlier, because there's something deeper in you that you want to cover up in order to prevent the outside world from seeing the real you, and in many cases to prevent you from seeing the real you. And one of the most beautiful things that I have found on this journey is getting to know myself. And it sounds bonkers because you're like, well, I am myself. But are you? Like, once you start looking more deeply into it, and that's going to be a whole video on its own. I've thought about this for a while. We don't really know ourselves. We know what society wants us to be. Often we are caught in groupthink because we don't want to be the odd one out. And that, that's something that many people have noticed and been a part of in the last few years. But it's all about balance. So let's go right back to who we are, things that light us up, looking at the areas where we feel out of balance. And it might even be that you something really simple like, I could really do with an extra hour's sleep. Well, that you can remedy that. You can go to bed a bit earlier, shift your schedule slightly. Don't eat a heavy meal before you go to bed. There are small things we can do, and I think sometimes we look at we make things bigger than they need to be. We look at making a monumental change, which is going to create more stress and isn't possible right now, rather than looking at the really small things, because I think sometimes we are programmed to think that small things are insignificant, but they're not. Sometimes the small changes that you make can have the biggest impact. And if that just means that you wake up feeling brighter, more refreshed, that's massive, because that impacts on your entire day. If you have to interact with people, you're going to be brighter and less stressed and less tired and probably a lot more friendly to deal with. You're going to have more enthusiasm for the things that you do. You might even then accept an invitation to go do something that normally you would have felt too tired to do. So never underestimate the small things, the small changes you can make to bring balance back into your life, because they can have a significant impact. Don't feel guilty about enjoying material things as well. Just make sure you enjoy them for the right reasons. And don't keep putting everything into that box and shutting the lid because you don't want to deal with it, because it will come back and make you deal with it, which will be 10 times harder. So I hope that's been of interest today and has perhaps helped you. I just think right now, in the world we're living in, it's very chaotic, and I think so many people are out of balance, and many people are struggling to know how to get that balance back into their lives. So I'm sharing this with you today as, a nudge from Spirit to talk about balance and how important it is, but also, to share some of the things that I have, the knowledge that I have gained and the things that I have done when I really struggled with it. And I struggled with the very negative effects of being out of balance and never dealing with it. And I don't want the same for you. I want you to be able to have those tools to connect with yourself and find out what makes you happy and what areas you can change things in. I want you to feel safe to be able to look at those things and to know that even though you may think on the outside they are very small changes, they could be the most significant changes for you. And at the end of the day, this is your life. Only you can live it, and you deserve to be happy. Thank you for listening. Let me know in the comments if this has been helpful. If you would like to book a one-to-one session with me, you can find all my details in the description. All my information about my sessions is on my website. And if you are interested in my animal communication work and more connecting into nature, they all kind of go hand in hand, but I have another YouTube channel, which is The Words of the Wild. So feel free to hop over there and look at the videos I've shared there too. Thank you for listening, and I will speak to you again in another video. Take care.